Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock. We are going to start on time tonight. Before we actually get into the committee meeting, we are going to do some introductions.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for showing up to Northern Pines High School and listening to a 7-12 study committee meeting. That's what this is a study committee meeting where we want to reach out to the constituents of Northern Pines School District to get your input on a potential 7-12 move in the district. I'm Jim Brewer. I'm the high school principal. Been here 4 years. I'm a father of 2.
I'm Mike Ricci. I'm the district administrator or superintendent. It means the same thing. I have been here for 11 years as a district administrator. I have 2 children in the district. I have a 1st grader and a 5th grader.
I'm Amy Decker. I'm a school board member. I have a daughter in high school that is a junior.
Hi, I'm Jen Payne. I'm a school board member, mother of 3, 10, 7, and 5.
I'm Val Lado. I was just a community member. I have 5 kids ranging from 3rd to 11th grade.
Craig Smith, parent, 5 kids from senior, sophomore, freshman, 7th grader, and 4th grader.
Carrie Jo Blumke, assistant principal of Eagle River Elementary and Eagle River Middle School.
Jennifer Nickel, high school science teacher, 22 years in the district.
Hi there, I'm Leah Stegmeyer. I work at Eagle River Elementary and I'm a parent of 2, an 8th grader and a 5th grader.
Faith Schreier, Spec Middle School.
Holly McCormack, parent and school board member.
Hi, I'm Emily Roney. I'm a Northern Pines High School graduate. I am the current Director of Pupil Services in the district, and I have 2 sons in grades 6 and 8.
Steve Miller, I teach math at the high school. I've been here 13 years. I have 3 boys ranging from 3 years old to 2nd grade.
And Jim Byer, I teach middle school social studies, and I have 4 kids in the district, kindergarten through 5th grade.
Okay, that's the committee, and just so everyone knows, there was a few other people who were asked to be on the committee, but for whatever reason declined. A lot of it had to do with the work situation. This committee has put a lot of time and effort into the study, and it's one thing we did ask of them while we asked them to be on the committee, and so unfortunately a few people could not be on because of their work schedules. Can everyone hear me okay? Is it loud enough? Okay, good. The purpose of the committee, I'm going to address for right now the purpose of the committee, and basically what this committee will do is it will examine if the 7-12 option is the best overall interest of the Northern Pines School District. And before this committee can make any decision or recommendation, the committee needs to develop a detailed plan. We are in the process of doing that right now. Once the committee has a plan, they'll go back to the question, is this plan in the best interest of the school district? If the committee supports the plan, it will move it to the board level in January. The school board will make the final decision. If the committee does not support the plan, it will not make a recommendation to the board to move to a 7-12 grade structure, but may make other recommendations. And the one thing I will say as a superintendent, we will be forced to do something down the road if we stay on the same course with our declining enrollment, the current funding formula, and being dependent on referendums. And please be assured, as the superintendent, as the administrators are up here, as the teachers are up here, we will make sure your kids are safe no matter what recommendation we propose to the school board. And again, I want to thank you for coming tonight. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Brewer, and he's going to go over some ground rules for tonight.
Again, I would like to thank everybody for showing up. It's wonderful to have people here talk about education. A lot of times, particularly like at board members, they hear more about extracurriculars, particularly coaches or whatnot, but it's great to talk education. And there's not a person here, I trust, okay, that doesn't have the best interest of Northern Pines at heart. Okay, every one of us here. We may disagree, okay, or agree, okay, but I am confident that everyone in this room wants to do what is right for kids. Some ground rules as we proceed here in this committee meeting. We are going to start on time, which we did at 7 o'clock. We will end at 9 o'clock. We all have lives and we have work to do tomorrow morning. So we will end at 9 o'clock. That means if this committee goes longer, this meeting goes longer, we will cut everybody off at 9. Okay, there are sheets in the back, okay, question sheets by each door. I encourage you to write your questions down. Place them in the box in the back. We'll try to get as many as we can in tonight. If we don't get everybody tonight, trust me, they will be looked at and they will be created in a Google form spreadsheet and discussed. Okay, so please put it in the box. Please be respectful and courteous to all speakers and audience members and the committee members themselves. Okay? And public comments, when we get to the public comments, will be limited to 3 minutes. We have a lot of people here this evening, and so please keep your comments to 3 minutes. I actually do have a stopwatch, and we're going to be putting it up on the big screen just to keep track of how long you're actually going with that. So again, please be respectful and courteous to all speakers. We started on time at 7. We will end at 9. And public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and question sheets are in the back. So at this point in time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Ritchie to give us a timeline of events, including the next meeting, which will be December 8th, which will be a public presentation.
Okay, just want to recap a timeline. Back in, actually I'm going to go back to last year. We briefly discussed the 7-12 option along with the 5th grade option. And at that time we said that the 7-12 option is off the table until we do 2 things. One, we have to see if we get the Montessori grant for the elementary Montessori school, which would be in St. Germain. And also, we need to bring a detailed plan back to the board. So we are in the process right now of that detailed plan. This year in September, we put the committee together and we began our timetable. In October, the study committee met a few times and we actually did site visits to other K-12 or 7-12 school districts. On October 15th, we toured New Berlin Eisenhower. On October 14th, we toured New Berlin West. On October 20th, we toured Peshtigo, and on October 27th, this committee walked through the Northern Pines High School. Also, we did a public tour of the high school, and we are also doing public tours of our other schools throughout the district. I also want to go and state that on October 24th, because one of the things we heard is that, you know, there's drugs in the high school. And what Jim and I did is, and we wanted to do this before the meeting tonight, we arranged for the K-9 unit, Drug Dog of Vilas County, to come through and comb the high school. That happened on October 24th, led by Ty Peterson. And very happy to report, the drug dog or canine dog did not hit on any school locker or property in the high school. So it was a very clean sweep on October 24th. Also, in November, we're going to be arranging more tours of the high school. I encourage all of you, we are doing 5 tours, November 5th, November 11th, November 20th, December 1st, and December 8th. That will be on the website. I believe there's sheets in the back. I highly encourage you to come through the high school when students are in session. If you cannot make any of those dates, please contact myself or Mr. Brewer, and we'll be happy to set up a schedule or a tour that fits your schedule. The committee will continue to meet and come up with a final plan. On December 8th at 6:30 p.m. right here in the auditorium, the committee will present a final plan. And at that time, a decision is going to have to be made soon after for scheduling purposes. So in January, it will be on the board agenda. If the committee moves it forward, it will be on the board agenda in January that the board will determine if we're going to change our grade structure. And then, depending on that decision, the months of February, March, April, all the way through September, any planning may have to be done depending on the board decisions. That's kind of the timetable of the committee. We've got a lot of work to do, and I know the time is going to go very fast. Okay, we look at our enrollment. You're going to get a spreadsheet up there in a second. I just want to point out a couple things. And I'm going fast on purpose because I know you have questions for us. When this high school opened back in 2006, 2007, we had 579 students in grades 9 through 12. As of today, we have 421 students in the high school, and to use the current enrollment, the year 2018, 2019, we'll have 312 students in the high school. If you look at the middle school enrollment, 2006, 2007, there are 328 middle school students, and today we have 246 students. If you take our current enrollment, 712, the projection for 2015, 2016, there would be 558 students in grades 7 through 12. That is still less than what we had in the high school in 2006, 2007. That number stays fairly constant over the next 5 or 6 years. And so again, you can see the numbers, they are up on the screen.
One of the issues with declining enrollments, again, just 3 years ago, when I came on board, actually 4 years ago, we were a little over 500 students in the high school. We're at 421 right now, and the projection is to continue to go down, roughly 10 to 15 students per year. As Mike gave you, when this building was open in 2006, we had 580. If we were to go 712, we'd be at 557 students here at Northland Pines. As a result of the declining enrollment, we've had a reduction in staff. Just to give you an example, we had 5 social studies teachers 4 years ago. We are down to 3. Okay? We had 4 tech ed teachers 4 years ago. We're down to 2. Okay? We had 2 FACE teachers a year ago. We're down to 1. Okay? As a result, you see some empty spaces in this building. Okay? And that's the map that I'm going to show you. Not only do you have that because of declining enrollment, but you also have technology needs, or in this case, lack of needs, because we went 1-to-1 last year. By going 1-to-1, we do not need the computer labs, a couple of them, that we had in the past. Okay? So you are going to see some empty rooms. Okay? What I'm going to show you right now is a map of downstairs here at the high school and a map of upstairs at the high school. And what you see in, what kind of looks like green, a barber pole, that you see. Okay, this is band and choir. Okay, these rooms right now in this area are band and choir rooms, which are beautiful. Are used 2 hours a day here at the high school. Okay, other times they're over at the middle school. So Forrest Mann and Kate Jansen are in their rooms 2 hours a day. And I do want to make a small analogy between the buildings that we have over at K8 and the building that we have here. I'll use an analogy, and I'm kind of a car guy. I like cars, so I'm going to use this. And don't hate me if you're not a Chevy lover. But I'm going to say that the K8 building is like a Chevy Malibu. It's a great car. Okay, it's going to do everything that you need it to do. It's very nice. Okay, it's going to get you to and fro. It's going to have your family safe, and things are going to be well. You are sitting in right now what I would consider a Chevy Corvette. Okay, this is a top-of-the-line building. This is a premier state-of-the-art facility. Okay, and 2 rooms that we have right here that aren't being fully utilized are band and choir. They have 5 practice rooms in those rooms, and they have a winger room, okay, which is a very top-of-the-line room that you have for practice, where it's soundproof. Kids can record music in there, and it's phenomenal. You can't match that over at the K8 building. Okay? The room 1409 used to be a driver's ed classroom. Okay? Right now it's used for drama. We have 1 section of that, and that'll be next semester. So right now it is not being utilized during the school day. It's used for driver's ed before school. Okay? When you come down the hallway here, okay, you have the science pod, okay, which is right here. Okay? This is a part-time teacher right in this area. Okay? 50% time teacher, so this room is 50%. Okay? This room right here, which is a middle science room, is not being utilized at all, except for our farm to school program, which is a great program. Okay? If you go across the way, this used to be a computer classroom, but because we went 1-to-1, it is not a computer classroom anymore. It is an academic coaching center, which is used part-time throughout the day. Okay? If you go down the hallway, this was electricities and plastics class, okay? But because of the declining enrollment and students not signing up for those classes, that room is not being utilized at all during the day. Okay? This area here is all tech ed. And remember, at one point in time, we had 4 tech ed teachers just 5 years ago. We are down to 2 tech ed teachers. There are multiple rooms here. There are 2 rooms every hour sitting empty. That's just downstairs. If you go upstairs, okay, you have family and consumer education classroom, phenomenal classroom, it's great. It's actually family and consumer science is what it's called now, okay? But that is used 1 hour a day. Okay? The other part of the day, Mrs. Kolb is over at the middle school. Again, we went from 2 phase teachers down to 1. Okay? Across the way is special ed classroom, 50% right here. Okay? This is the English pod, and by the way, we call these pods. Okay? They are areas that, core academic areas. For example, right here is English. Room 2215 is vacant throughout the day. This used to be a computer lab, but again, going 1-to-1, we don't need it as a computer lab at this moment, so that is sitting vacant. If you go across the hallway, that's social studies. Okay, you have 3 classrooms that sit vacant all day long. Okay, if you go down the hallway, we have 2204, that is a mistake, that is actually being utilized. 2201, we allow Mr. Olivati to use that room because this 2203 is actually his room, but because we have the space, we allow him to use that, and he uses it for yearbook, along with some independent study work that goes on over there. If you go down the hallway, this is our math pod that we have. 2112 is Mr. Zarapata. He leaves at the end of the day, so his room is empty at the end. 2106 is completely empty all day. 2102 is used 1 hour a day by Mr. Jakes, who's our health phy-ed teacher. If you go across the hallway, this is staff development room, could be utilized, it's sitting empty. 2103 is sitting empty, okay? Mr. Faust is a part-time teacher at the high school, okay? And Ms. Weber is a part-time Spanish teacher here at the high school, 50%. As you can see, declining enrollment has taken a huge impact, okay, on this building. And not only that, the technology needs and others, okay, is one of the impetuses for us getting together to talk about a different structure, okay, that is going on. One of the other things that we have going on, and just talk building usage, is the impact that it has on students, our current structure. We have currently, and every year we have roughly a dozen students or more that travel from the middle school over to the high school. Okay, this year we have 11 students taking 13 classes, okay, 7th and 8th graders coming on over. When they travel over from the middle school to the high school, our bell schedules aren't exactly alike. They're very close. They all have the modified block, which is Monday, Thursday, Friday, 8-period day, Tuesday, Wednesday block. But the middle school currently has 3-minute passing times because of the way the building is laid out. We have a 5-minute passing time here at the high school. So as the day goes on, we get off a little bit more. And then the lunches throw things because you have the elementary lunches that they have to throw in there too. So as you get into the middle to the later part of the day, we are off. So what happens is those students will come on over to take a class, and this is what parents and guardians have chosen to do, and they have the legal right to do that, to come on over and take a class. They will come here, they will get here on time, they'll do their class, and then they go back over to the middle school, and they're anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes late every day. Okay, so every day we have these 11 students, okay, walking in inclement weather from the outside in. Okay, as you know, our last winter wasn't the greatest. Okay, and arriving back to the middle school classes 10 to 15 minutes. If you add that up in a week, okay, we have middle school students that are missing 1 day of instruction, okay, every week by our current structure. It's hard to, I can't figure out a way to do it. I would love for somebody to share, can you do it differently so they aren't late? But you have that travel time. Even if our schedules were exactly identical, you have the travel time between the middle school and high school, and those kids are negatively impacted in education right at this moment. Now, granted, the coursework that they're doing here at the high school is level appropriate. It's developmentally levelly appropriate. And to show the fact of that, the 11 students who are taking 13 classes, their average is 99.01% currently. Okay, and they are all doing phenomenal in what is going on. The other impact that you have with our current situation is our staffing. And we have some shared staff that are in this building right now, in this room, and they know the impact that it had. Just like it impacts students, it impacts staff. Okay, so we share staff, and I'll use Mr. Faust as an example. Mr. Faust teaches, he teaches in this room right here at 2105. And Mr. Faust teaches first hour Spanish over at the middle school. Okay? I have to schedule Mr. Faust with a second hour prep. I have to, and because of the travel distance. Anytime you put constraints on scheduling, it negatively impacts kids when you create the master schedule, because I cannot schedule a class with Mr. Fowles' second hour at the high school because he can't be here in time. Okay? If we did go 7-12, an example would be, he would be on time. We wouldn't have that scheduling, and then we could schedule students, okay, during that second hour with Mr. Fowles. And not only on Mr. Fowles, it can't be scheduled for a second hour, okay, we have to find coverage on our block days for a gentleman like Mr. Fowles, who's a shared staff member, in order for him to get here on time. So on Tuesdays, we have 1, 3, 5, and 7 for our class periods. Mr. Fowles teaches over there first hour. He has prep second hour, but we don't have prep on Tuesdays. We go right into third hour. So I've got to find coverage for him over at the middle school or at the high school for approximately 5 to 10 minutes for him to walk from the middle school to the high school. So we've got kids either in this building or in that building not having 5 to 10 minutes of instruction with their current, instructor. And there's other people supervising that. So there are some questions with staffing and scheduling along with the student impact.
One of the things that happened last year, it's Act 138. It was a new law that was passed. That law did take effect for the 2014-15 school year. And basically what that law states is that in Wisconsin, 7th and 8th grade students may take high school classes for credit, provided the teacher teaching the class is high school certified in that content area. And as Mr. Brewer did say, we have a number of students that come over daily to participate in high school classes. And yes, that does count for their credit. And what that does, it allows those students then, as they go through their high school career, to take other classes. And I guess one way I can put this is the fact that if this plan goes through, some kids would have the opportunity. Right now we end our German and Spanish at level 4. There would be an opportunity to take that into Spanish or German 5, or even Spanish or German 6. For the students who want to stop at a foreign language or a world language after 2 or 3 years, they would be able to take other classes, and we probably won't even get into tonight the youth options and the course options, and how right now a very big trend in Wisconsin is high school students can take classes for college credit. And so a lot of our juniors and seniors are currently taking college credit as a junior or senior in high school. And this is a huge advantage to those students and to those families. The other thing that I want to just briefly talk about is the fact that we talked about those 14 or 15 kids coming over for more academic classes or your core classes. Yes, they're very bright kids, they're very intelligent students, but also one of the things we want to look at is, will this improve our music and band department, because we'll have a better recruiting tool by using the teacher in the same room, offering the same program for grades 7 through 12, more opportunities. Will this improve our tech ed area? Because as most of you know, our tech ed rooms in this high school are state of the art. We have those rooms available, and I would love to see all day long students in those rooms. So we would be able to have 7th and 8th graders take classes in those tech ed rooms. I also want to point out, we are not talking about throwing 7th and 8th graders in high school classes throughout the high school. Okay? It's only for those students that take those classes for credit, for high school credit as a 7th or 8th grader. For the most part, 7th graders will be taking classes with 7th grade, 8th graders will be taking classes with 8th grade, and high school with high school. Yes, for some of the math areas and some of the foreign language areas, and there could be some others, for those students who choose to take it for credit, it could be in with high school students.
One of the things that Dr. Ritchie talked about is the site visits that we did, and I just want to point out real quick, if I could, give me a second, technology's great when it works, folks, is the visits to New Berlin West, Eisenhower, Peshtigo, and Northland Pines. We did do 4 site visits here in the month of October. They were extremely informative. We visited New Berlin, the New Berlin School District, West and Eisenhower, for a variety of reasons. One, they are a high-flying school district, which you'll see the data on that in just a little bit. But two, they are 3 times larger than we are. And we know some of the concerns that you have, many of you have in this auditorium right now, is what about the 7th and 8th graders being in with high school kids? I thought it very important, and so did Dr. Ritchie and others on this committee, that we choose very large schools, and 3 times larger than us, to see the interactions of those students in the hallways. Because we knew that that was some of the concerns that you had. That was expressed last night at the board meeting by a few citizens who I'm glad are here today. Okay? And that is a concern for some people. Okay? And I'm hopeful that the committee members to my right will talk a little bit about what they saw at these site visits, including our current building, because some of the committee members have never been in Northland Pines High School during the day. Like Dr. Ritchie said, and I stated last night at the board meeting, I highly encourage you to come into this building during a school day. See what goes on here. See the interaction between the students and staff, and students to students. See what happens at Northland Pines. Folks, we are so blessed in so many ways. We really are. The facilities that I saw in Peshtigo and New Berlin don't come close to matching what we have here. Okay, the staff is not as vigilant at New Berlin nor Peshtigo, and trust me, I don't want to throw them under the bus because they're great school districts and you'll see the data to support it. However, our staff, I think, does a better job of being in the hallways than what we saw at those other places. I emphasize that like no tomorrow at every staff meeting that we have. It's always been on the agenda. Okay, I've even challenged my staff here in the month of September that the upstairs wasn't doing as good a job as the downstairs of being in the hallway. Okay, I can tell you that they have done that. They have stepped it up. It's wonderful. You need to see it. We have 5 days scheduled. If you can't make those days, please contact me or Dr. Ritchie. I'd be glad to give you a personal tour. Take you around and see what happens. Plan at least an hour of your day though. Okay, I'm going to tell you that. It takes at least an hour to get around here. If you're here for a day and you see these and you're here for an hour, you're going to see at least 2 passing times. So you'll get to see the students interact. You'll see the middle school students coming on over here, okay, without their peer groups, okay, walking our hallways. If you're here before school, you will see SOAR students, okay, which is a charter school that we have in Land O'Lakes, okay, between 5 and 8. They're sitting in the commons area every day with our high school kids. I would love you to see that. After school, you see students, elementary, middle school students coming on over to use our field house, to use our facilities upstairs in our weight room, okay, to hang out in the library, to sit in our commons area. That's an everyday occurrence. I encourage you to come in and see us. Okay? At this point in time, I'm hopeful that the committee members to my right can share out some of their experiences that they saw at these site visits.
I guess I'll state a few things that I saw. Actually, Holly McCormick and I went on a site visit twice at this school district. The second time was with the majority, I think everyone here on the committee was at the site visit. And in the morning, when the SOAR students are waiting in the commons area, it just seemed natural. They were all at their own table. When the bus came to take them to Land O'Lakes, they all were ready to go. High school students were sitting together. There wasn't anything that looked like it didn't belong in there, that they shouldn't be there. Also, I went to the site visit at Peshtigo, and they have the 7-12 concept, and we went into study halls and into their library, and they had a combined 7-12 study hall. And in the library, the 7th, 8th graders would sit together, and the high school kids sat together. And there was a section where there was a high school and some middle school kids working together. It was kind of like their mentoring program that we'll probably talk about later on the agenda. But what I saw was maturity in the hallways, both here at Northland Pines and at the site visit at Peshtigo. I was unable to go to the New Berlin visits. I remember in the 80s when I was in high school, I mentioned this to the committee, I feel like it's way more under control than when I was in high school. I mean, we had smoking doors that you could go outside at our high school, so Anyway, I was very comfortable with the site visit at Peshtigo and heard a lot of positives from different staff members at different times that came in to speak with the committee members. So they weren't all there sitting at one time hearing one another, but the number one thing that I heard from, I believe it was their guidance counselor, their top high school math teacher. She taught the top level of math. The number one thing that they said was the maturity level and the camaraderie of the middle school students and the high school students, and they did not have one issue with middle school and high school in the hallways or anything going on. If anything, it was middle school and middle school having an issue, or high school and high school. And the best thing that they would see was that the high school students would look after. Especially, you have older brothers and sisters looking after their siblings when they come in as a freshman and they might be a senior. My son did that with my daughter when she came in. So anyway, I'll let some other board members speak.
Hi, I went to the 2 site visits, and it's the same school district in Berlin, but it's 2 different schools. One thing that we were able to do was talk to students, observe the students, talk to teachers, and also some parents who had kids go through. Their districts have had that 7-12 structure for a long time, so for the most part, when you're talking to people, they say it's always been like that. But also to reiterate what Amy had said, when you're talking to the kids or teachers, they're saying most of the issues, if there's any issues, it's mostly between the grade levels. So 7th graders with 7th graders, 8th graders with 8th graders. And it looked very natural. I think kids, and even here at Northland Pines, watching the kids between the classes, the kids were more concerned about getting to class or going to their locker. They're concerned about what they're doing. I do want to also point to the opportunities that are available to our kids. Looking at 7th graders in this New Berlin Eisenhower School, having a Gateway to Engineering program and having that opportunity, and seeing that on the positive side, there are these opportunities for kids to take these classes if they have that interest, and to kind of hone their interest early on, if they know what they want to do. I had a positive experience in both the 3 schools that I was at. I know there's concerns about social and all that. The other thing I want to point out is, as a parent, as a school board member, and as a committee member, I take this job very seriously and this task very seriously. And I don't think there's anyone up here that does not have the students' concern as their first concern. I think that's why we're here, that I want to learn as much as possible and become informed to make informed decisions. So, thank you.
I'll go ahead. I'll start off by saying, when I was asked to be on the committee, I initially said no. I was adamantly against it, 100% against it. And then I thought, well, I don't really have a voice to complain if I'm not going to be a part of it and at least learn a little bit about it. I went into it and I gave a full disclosure saying 100% against it. It was no surprise that I was 100% against it. I think that my most valid concern was maturity level. Where are these kids at? Are they ready at 7th and 8th grade to be in the upperclassmen? That was and is still a concern of mine. As far as academics go, hands down, there's no question on it. Hands down, it is definitely beneficial to them. I know that there's a lot out there who have the same concerns that I have. I have kids, I have a daughter, I have a son. Either way, you get them in a high school setting, it's a little bit tricky. I think that's probably most of your concerns, and it was my main concern. It was alleviated a small amount with the New Berlin visits, still was there. Peshtigo was a lot better. It was a really good school. Their staff was very involved. The one thing that they did that we as a committee made sure was going to happen, the middle schoolers are middle schoolers. They are not high schoolers. They are separate. They have middle school activities. They have, and the high schoolers have high school activities. they are separate when it comes to that. There's a rite of passage that a 7th and 8th grader and a 9th grader, they have a rite of passage as they get older. That's one of the things you look forward to of getting to be an upperclassman. They still have that. 7th and 8th graders don't get to do the same things that the high schoolers get to do. It's a rite of passage. You have to earn that. We talked about it, and one of the non-negotiables was they have a separate lunchtime. The 7th and 8th graders and possibly the 9th graders, they have a separate lunchtime. They have separate gym locker rooms. I know in middle school that was a big issue, you know? And so there's things that we've eased the way into. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about it yet, but the locker situation, they're separate. The upperclassmen are downstairs. The younger ones are upstairs. They're not going to be around each other that much. I watched the hall passing. They're in the hallway for a very short amount of time, getting from point A to point B. The way that they have it structured, they're really not with each other as much as I thought they would be. They're with each other more by choice. After school, before school, they're coming over on their own, and they're okay. They're okay. The high schoolers are okay with these younger kids coming over and using the facilities. So there was a lot of concerns that I had that were alleviated and made me feel a lot better. I do still have concerns. Are they emotionally ready for that? Which I do believe our directors here have taken the steps, you know, to make sure that they are okay. I think we are not giving enough credit where credit needs to be due. We have an amazing staff. We have phenomenal teachers. We have a very involved the staff are all very involved. They don't just hide in their classrooms and let what's going to happen. They are out there. They are watching. They are listening. They are hearing what's going on. They are involved with them. We have an amazing staff. When we walked through the hall, there were so many staff out there that there's no way that they could do anything. There are cameras everywhere. We pointed out every single camera. There's cameras everywhere which link into the office's computers. They are literally, it's in a fortress. Everything is locked down. I mean, I guess as a parent, I looked at it and I'm like, okay, I'm very overprotected, and I felt okay with it. So I changed from the 100% against to I see the validity in it. And I wasn't, if anybody knows me, they know I'm a very strong-willed, opinionated, stubborn person. I'm not going to be swayed by somebody else's opinion, especially when it comes to my children. There's nobody who's going to change my mind besides me, looking and seeing what I see, which is why I joined this committee, so that I could see firsthand. I wanted to be a part of seeing what my children, all 5 of them, would be affected by. And I have to say, there's still going to be concerns, but sending my 9th grader into high school, I have concerns. That's just a parent. I have concerns about that in 9th grade. I have probably the same concerns that I do in 7th grade, if not even possibly less, because they're very aware of it and very intentional in making sure that it is kept under control and it is the best environment for my children and your children to be a part of.
Well, now we don't really have anything else to say.
Can I just say ditto to that?
As a middle school teacher, I will agree with Val that, you know, I love the middle school. I love the people I teach with. I love just everything about it. And when I was asked to be on the committee, I had a lot of reservations. My kids well, not transferred, but my kids go to 3 Lakes, and they went from 6th grade and they transitioned into the high school. Same as what we're talking about here. Different setup. The building is made for that. This building's a little bit different. My kids were okay. My kids were both go to Eau Claire. I love them to death, and I know some of you know them, and you guys know that. But I never had the fears that you're experiencing right now, so I really can't put myself in your shoes because that's all our district knew. But I can tell you that walking through the halls here, I've been here a zillion times, but I've never really looked at what the kids are doing. I go to where I need to go and then I leave. The kids were very, very well behaved. They, said hello, they're respectful. When we went to Peshtigo, the kids were very good in the halls. I actually told the people I teach with that I thought it was really well structured and that the kids stepped up, being around those older kids. Our main concern, like when Mr. Byer and I, we're on this committee, we're middle school teachers, so it's a little awkward. But our main concern is to keep that middle school child and the activities going. And some of that does need to be separate in our opinion. We have forensics, the middle school play, girls' power night, girls' club, many activities that we intend, if this should go forward, to keep happening. There's a lot of wonderful things at the middle school, and if there's any students out there, I know you feel the same way. I mean, it's kind of hard to think of the middle school changing, but if we're kind of moving forward and times are going to change, I would rather be a person that speaks and kind of has something to say about it than nothing at all. I'm not 100%, let's just go forward, but I feel a lot better since we're putting some thought into it. I've gotten a lot of opinions from the people that I teach with. Tried to ask those questions when we went to the site visits, and it was good to see, and it made me feel a little better.
Going off of what Faith said, one thing that really stood out at Peshtigo was the nurturing environment that they had to offer, and they really kept to the middle school identity. For an example of that, when we walked through the halls, the middle school kids were wearing hats on their head, and the high school kids were not. And that was because it was Red Ribbon Week for drug awareness, and that was only a student council middle school activity. And it didn't even faze the high school kids at all, but it was nice to see that identity of the middle school child, and just to see that it can work and it can happen. I think that's something that we're aware of, and that can be a part of our plan. Keeping things like homecoming separate, homecoming dances. 7th and 8th graders should not be going to a high school homecoming dance. So working on those things and seeing that in other places they're capable of having that happen and keeping that identity was really eye-opening. As far as Peshtigo and their environment, another part that stood out to me was the school spirit. They had high school kids, juniors and seniors, going to their 7th and 8th grade volleyball games, cheering them on, telling them to go, and then the tradition somewhat followed, so by the time those 7th graders were seniors, they were expected to go. So the school spirit trickled and followed through, and it was a really neat thing to see in somewhat of a mentoring program, which I know we'll get into in this later on the agenda, but not an academic mentoring program, but more just in that idea of we are a school, we are together, we are a community, we are a team. So to me, that was something that really stood out as true examples.
I don't know if anyone remembers, but talking about school spirit, I believe it was 2 years ago, or maybe it was last year, our girls basketball, with the regional, I think it was the finals, we played Peshtigo here at Northern Pines. And the Peshtigo student body brought three fan buses. They outnumbered our students here at Northern Pines. It's a 3-hour trip. They brought 3 fan buses. All their high school students were dressed up. Their faces were painted. They were really into the game. It was quite a sight to see. And I think a lot of that has to do with Carrie Jo just mentioned about that school spirit, how they build that culture. And one of our goals would be to build school spirit. And what a great way to do it when you include your 7th and 8th grade to kind of take that, not to take the lead, but to really set the example and try to get kids motivated to be able to participate like that. And to, I couldn't believe what I saw that night here at Northern Pines when those 3 buses pulled up with all those kids. It was a great sight.
All right, I just want to let y'all know that this is something that I've never done in my life. I've never gone up to join a committee to do anything like this, so this is completely new territory for me. And as far as my knowledge about what my children go through, my wife Julie takes care of most of all that, I have to tell you that. She's she just tells me where I'm supposed to go when I need to be there. I'm running too hard doing other things. So this, when I was asked to join this committee, it was, it was a tough decision for me to make. I didn't know that I would be able to be beneficial to this committee at all. I was concerned about that I would be helpful. And, but I thought, if I ever was going to try to do something like this, nothing more important than something for my kids. So you guys all know that I have skin in this game, right? And my oldest daughter, Maddie, she's going to be graduating this year, so it's no issue for her, but I have my 4 younger kids. So, and if you've ever done anything important in your life, I think you want to do some real good fact gathering before you try to make a decision. I never make decisions without sitting down with pen and paper, laying out all the pros, laying out all the cons. If I don't feel I'm knowledgeable about the pros, or if I don't feel I'm knowledgeable about the cons, I'm going to do my due diligence to go out and find the information that I need to be able to be knowledgeable about both sides before I try to make a decision. And I think that's really important. And so I've been, like Val said, I've been nothing but impressed with the faculty here at this school, the people that are on this board. Some of us are just parents, we're not faculty. But I can see just my involvement with this, the compassion that these people have for our kids, and it's very impressive to me. So I think that it's real important to realize that these people, and many of them have their own children in this school system, and so they have skin in the game also. And so I've been nothing but impressed with the process that we've been going through. I came in with no bias one way or the other, basically because I really have no knowledge about education or anything like that. And so I was excited when they said we were going to go to New Berlin. I didn't get to go to Peshtigo. I had to work that day, couldn't get out of work. But my experience at New Berlin was really impressive. I was impressed with how the faculty, they're just all positive about how their school has been. The community's very positive about it. That's the way they've been for a long, long time. They've been 7-12 for 10 years. One analogy that I thought was kind of funny, because I'm a taller stature, they say there's a difference in the height of these children as they're cruising through the halls. And you got conversations going on up here, and you got conversations going on down here. And they're just kind of passing each other, and no one's really involved in each other's conversation. It's the uppers and the lowers kind of thing. And there's exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, that's really kind of what's going on. And it's pretty cute to see. We have more work to do. Obviously, that's the point of this tonight, is to hear other concerns so we can get more information about the potential cons and get more information. Hopefully some pros tonight too. But I think it's important to realize that no decisions have been made yet. We're still gathering facts, and I've been nothing but impressed. So I guess that's about all I have to say.
Okay, any other committee members want to share out the experience?
And actually, the only site visit that I did was here at Northland Pines. Unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts and things that came up to me, I was unable to travel to either Peshtigo or New Berlin. And to be honest, when I looked down over the railing at the students below, I was so focused on my own son, hoping he didn't do something terrible and rude, that I kind of lost. I thought, oh, behave, but he did great. But it was nice for me, I think. Obviously, I worked in this school for several years, but to kind of see the ins and outs of the building, I had a chance not only to go on the tour, but also to sit down with the special education staff, recognizing that this is going to ultimately impact that entire program. And so we want to be prepared that if we do end up going this route, that we have some sort of plan in place and we know what would be in the best interest of all the students with disabilities in this district. And it started off a little uneasy, I would say. We took a look at all the students that we have, and I really wanted to get input from the staff on what they felt would be effective. And quite honestly, toward the end, we held 2 meetings, one on a Thursday and one on a Friday, and toward the end, there was actually a sense of excitement. I think that from a special education perspective, what we realized is that we would have more opportunities to utilize expertise. We would have more opportunities for flexible grouping. We would have more opportunities for, obviously building space and resources that would be available. And I really felt like it was exciting, particularly for that 7 to 12 group. You know, we're also looking at the impact of that elementary group, recognizing that those teachers potentially would be increasing their caseloads as well. But just looking at options and understanding that this can be positive as well. I am trying to focus on what programs and what supports we can put in place to make this as positive as possible. We all recognize that, you know, there are concerns. There are concerns regarding social emotional well-being of children, and nobody in this room wants to harm a child. I mean, that's why we're here. And I know that there was some talk of a mentoring program. That's something that I am passionate about, that I would absolutely insist that we implement. And I think our minds automatically go to the negative social emotional impact of this group, when maybe we can kind of shift that thought process and think, maybe some really great things are going to happen. You know, through mentoring, through having students of different ages, there's research out there to support that these programs are beneficial not only to the mentee, but to the mentor. There are students in, right now we have a big brother, big sister program at our elementary level where high schoolers come down, and we have students desperate for mentors. We don't have enough high school students in that voluntary role to fulfill that. And not only is it providing a mentor for a student who really needs somebody in their life, but it's also giving leadership role to those higher level students and those older students. So I would encourage you to try to, obviously we have concerns, but let's also look at the possibilities. There are a lot of possibilities. We can impact lives positively as well. And so I would like to continue to explore that option. One community member mentioned to me the possibility of having parents involved in some of those mentorship programs. Parent involvement is awesome, and you know, research shows that it decreases at the high school level. The biggest involvement is in elementary, and then there's a slow decline. So if we can get parents into our buildings and be part of this process, and we can hear your concerns and we can address those through some of these programs, we obviously want to do that. And then also, you know, just looking, I guess, I would like to focus on what we can do. If as Dr. Ritchie said, something has to change. Something is going to change at some point. If we can have control over that rather than be forced into it, and we can work together to discuss our concerns rather than battle each other and really provide the best program options possible, I feel that's the route that we need to go. So, you know, obviously you can ask your questions at the end, but also if you have specific questions of me, if you have a student with a disability and you're wondering what things would potentially look like, or you have concerns, I would encourage you to please contact me. Call, stop in, email, anything.
Can I sneak in one other thing? I'm just remembering some things from our visit. We did get the opportunity, honestly, to talk with staff and to talk with students. Can you hear me okay? We got the opportunity to talk with staff and talk with students when we were there, and that was very interesting. And just one thing I just remembered is we had, you were with me, talking with Gal. There were two young ladies doing some work in the office. They're both seniors. And we got the opportunity just to kind of corner and chat with them a little bit about their experience. And one of them had actually entered the school system in 7th grade, and one of them had entered the school system in the 9th grade. And but they were both seniors, so they both had kind of a different perspective on how their experience was there. But they were both very, very positive. It was hard to find anybody that could really say anything negative about their experiences there. When you were talking to the students, they just loved their school, they loved their experience, they loved their opportunities. It was impressive. And then I did get this tour of this high school, which is the first time I got to do that. And that was real enjoyable. I appreciated that very much. This is an awesome building. I've only been into like the gymnasium that's in the fitness centers, the main places I've been. But wow, it is a beautiful facility. So if you have not ever toured this facility, I definitely encourage you to take their office up and come and see it. And definitely come and see it when the kids are in class so that you can see them passing in the halls and you can see the faculty out there. In fact, I did ask my children, I just asked them because I wanted their opinion about what they see in the hallways and passing and all these kinds of things. And they said they're nothing but impressed with the faculty coming out. They're always present. They're present even when there's not passing time, they're seeing people. But really, when there wasn't passing time, the halls are, the lights go out and the place is pretty vacant. It's impressive. So take them up on that offer for sure.
along that note, we also talked to middle school kids, and I don't remember who on the committee had shared this, but all of the middle school kids were very positive as well, and one of them said the high school kids, or the seniors or juniors, they're like my cousins. So the positive relationship building that was happening was very powerful, and they were willing to share that as well.
I would kind of go in a little different direction. So it just kind of floored me when the man was kind of giving us some tours at New Berlin, talked about it, and I know maybe that some of the administrators could address this even more deeply. I've been teaching here 22 years. I have taught predominantly freshman classes, once in a while sophomore biology, so I've had a lot of freshmen over the years. And I've noticed a pattern, and it's called adjustment, okay? And when your child is a freshman coming into the school, it is an adjustment. It's big, it's, all these things, and I really thought, I said yes to be in this committee, and I put myself in that spot. All right, so now we're asking a 7th grader to come here. And I really had to sit and quiet my mind, which is hard in my mind for a minute. And I'm sure it would be overwhelming. But the one thing I think we need to remember, we would have one, if this goes through, there would be one transition, that 7th grade transition. There wouldn't be 2 transitions in your child's life, okay? Unless you were moving or coming from a different place. And what this man, the comment that he made, as most of you know in this room, the state in our country is incredibly focused on scores, ratings, school report cards, our kids versus your kids, other districts' kids. And that has been very much a focus of this district, as it must be. And I noticed how the man was saying, we know, and I'm sure Jim is going to speak to this in a minute, New Berlin knocks it out of the park for ACT scores. They knock it out of the park compared to our school on a lot of things. And we have, I think, a wonderful school district. One of the reasons that they are talking about this is they said, our freshmen, when they go and take the ACT Aspire in early 10th grade, take the WKCE, they're completely adjusted. It's nothing for them. They're already in the school. It's part of who they are. Your children as freshmen coming to the school, I would say about now, mid to late October, is when I finally feel them going, okay, a little bit of comfort, all right, for some of them. And I just thought that was very interesting. Yes, your 7th grader might have to go through that, but they would adjust. When your 9th grader's doing it, the stakes are higher. They're taking high school classes for credit. It's just something that struck me. It kind of turned the corner, because honestly, I didn't even know why I got asked on this committee, because half the time I'm fighting with Joe for something. We're not agreeing on anything. So I was kind of taken out of the blue to be on it. I think some of you also know me in a dual role as co-president of the NPA. I'm usually not on administration of many things. And so I came on this committee as kind of a, okay, I'll do it because it sounds interesting. And I really had a thirst to know, is this going to harm children? I couldn't imagine anyone doing that. So I thought that was very interesting, strictly from an academic, if you're into your child going to college and scores and comparisons, there just doesn't seem to even be a question.
And due to time constraints, if you haven't spoken, we're going to move on. Jenny did talk about scores, and data is something that my staff knows I like, and that we like in education, is to look at our data. I do want to show you a little bit of data that we have here between the schools that we have. I'm actually going to turn it over to Dr. Ritchie to talk a little bit about the data as he put this together.
I'm going to go quickly here because I know you have questions. But the yellow highlighted are the high scores, and I don't want to focus on New Berlin. I want to focus on Peshtigo and Northern Pines, because New Berlin is a different animal. Okay, it really is. It was a great visit. I'm glad we went there. But their test, look at their ACT score, at 25, and so that's a very high ACT score. But when you look at Northern Pines compared to Peshtigo, those first 2 columns, I'm going to go right to the high school ACT score, and we've got a good score. We're at 22.3, and they were at 23.3, okay? And what Jen talked about a little bit about is that high school transition. You come over as a 7th grader, and by 9th grade, you are settled in. And those scores, you look at all the sub-scores, they are higher. And I think that has a lot to do with that transition. Yes, there would be a transition at 7th grade, and it may impact scores a little bit, but the scores in high school, the transcripts and the report cards are extremely important as our students go on to any post-secondary from when they leave high school. So the transition plays a big piece in that. So when you look at the Peshtigo scores, they are higher, the ACT. But look at the advanced placement exams passed. That's another number that really stuck out. We get a decent score at 65.2. Peshtigo at 77.1. The dropout rate is very close. The truancy rate is again fairly close. Peshtigo is a little bit lower. The high school athletic participation rate, again, Peshtigo was a little bit higher. I was surprised by this number, but the music participation rate, Peshtigo was more than twice what we have for high school music participation. The high school students suspended, they had less than us. High school students expelled, they had less than us. Four-year college, very close, and tech school, very close. And so those numbers were interesting, and I know you can look at any schools, you can compare data, and I just wanted to go through to see if there was a big difference, and I'm very surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised, but I guess looking at the 712, wondering if it had to do with that transition.
One of the things that we took a look at was how are they structured at each of those schools, meaning, are they departmentalized? And for example, are all the English teachers together 712? Are all the math together 712? Do they have separate pods or houses for 7th graders? Do they combine 7th and 8th graders into houses? New Berlin houses the 7th graders, okay, which, is, for those of you who kind of know the middle school model, it's kind of, the middle school model for 7th graders, for that transition. That's what New Berlin does. Okay, Peshtigo departmentalizes all of their academic areas. Okay, so all the sciences are all together. So that's one of the things that this committee kind of took a look at and discussed. What would it kind of look like, all three of those, if we went 712? And I want to share those out with you real quick. Mapping options. Okay. If I could, let me just kind of make this a little bit bigger. Okay. What you see is this is the first floor of the high school. Okay. So if we did go 712, again, we mapped out all three options. Departmentalized, a 7th grade house, and a 7th and 8th grade house, or concept. This is the first floor, and I'm sorry if you can't see it very well, but it gives you an idea. Okay, band and choir, you can see I'm starting over here in this corner, and band and choir is right here, folks, to get a visual of where you're at right now, okay, with it. Okay? And what that would do is allow, if we did go 712, Mrs. Jansen and Mr. Mann would be over here at least 3 more hours a day, so that room is going to get used at a minimum 5 of the 8 hours a day. Tim Jakes, for example, he's our health teacher. He currently teaches that one class upstairs. Not only is he health, but he's also Phy Ed. Remember where he's currently at right now is he's upstairs. He would be down here, and this would be his full-time classroom, close to the field house where he's at. If you move into the library, Mrs. Oberg's in that ACC, that's the old computer lab that we had. Again, we don't need that computer lab because we went one-to-one. Thank you for that. The science department is here. And this is, this committee's got a lot of work to do yet. Okay, and this is an area that we would have. Okay, and I'm looking at Mrs. Gaffney as I speak, and she sees her name right in the middle. Okay, and she's like, boy, that middle room's not as nice as the other rooms. But you know something? That's where we need to talk together, and we need to figure it out. If this is what we are going to do, come December 8th, we're going to have a plan in place where everybody's going to be placed, and this is where they're at. Okay, but all the science is here. And even if we did a house system, we wouldn't have science upstairs. This building was built with all the sciences down here. We're not going to spend extra money to go in and build a new science classroom somewhere else with that. You have Mr. Subak, who's on film, by the way. He's the gentleman filming us here tonight, so it is recorded for posterity reasons. And Mr. Cleaver and Mr. Grittner. Okay, kitty corner from Mr. Grittner, he's our art teacher. Kitty corner from him would be Miss Niehaus. Okay, she is the art teacher over at the middle school. So the art teachers would be close to each other right now. There would be more collaboration and communication between the two than what they have now. Mr. Govak would be over here full-time with that. So those tech ed, we'd have 3 tech eds. Under all 3 plans, the first floor kind of stays the same. Okay? It doesn't really deviate much at all. Now, if we were to house just the 7th grade, okay, which means to have the core academic areas minus the science, because the science is built down here, here's what it would look like. Okay, upstairs you have our family and consumer science class, Mrs. Cole. She would be teaching over here that. You have some special ed classrooms here. In this area, it would be social studies 8 through 12. So Mr. Byer, who's a middle school teacher who's on the committee, would be in with 9 through 12 other social studies teachers, plus Mr. Faust and Mrs. Weber, 2 Spanish teachers, would join them in that social studies pod. Across the way, you would have Ms. Polkrant, who's an English teacher right now, an 8th grade English teacher, joining the high school English teachers in here. We would convert this back to a computer lab, all due to state testing and other types of testing that goes on. We would need that space. That happens. In the math wing, we would include Mrs. Carey, who's an 8th grade math teacher, so that would be math, and then German with Mrs. Stuber would be right there. Okay? This area here would be the 7th grade pod. Okay, so you have Mr. Prod, Gussert, and Reynolds, okay, all 7th grade teachers all together with a special ed classroom right there. We would maintain the staff development room, which is a large committee room that we use quite often. That's the 7th grade. If you did a 7th and 8th grade, again, the downstairs stays the same, okay? It changes upstairs. Cold's the same, special ed's the same, okay? The real difference is on this side of the building, okay, where in this area, which is currently a math pod, would turn into the 7th and 8th grade pod. Okay, so you'd have Gussert, Reynolds, and Prod, those 7th grade teachers, all right next to each other. You would have 8th grade, Byer, Polkrant, and Carey, all right next to each other. So the 7th and 8th grade would actually be in closer proximity, going 7-12, than they are currently now in the middle school structure. The math department would shift across the hall. Okay, so the 4 high school math folks would be there, maintaining staff development room. The 3 foreign language teachers would now be together in the 7th and 8th grade pod, where Faust, Weber, and Stuber would all be together. In the social studies pod, excuse me, yep. So world language and social studies, which is a natural collaboration for interdepartmental work, would be all together. And then special ed would move down near their special ed brethren that they have there. English still remains the same. Okay? Then there also is departmentalized. And again, this is what Peshtigo does. You could just departmentalize. You could pull all the math teachers in the current math pod. You could pull all the social studies teachers in the current social studies pod. Same thing with English with that. Those are 3 different options that are on the table, okay, that we have looked at right now. And I'm going to tell you, we all differ in this committee right now of what we think would be best. Okay? And December 8th, we will have kind of a decision of what goes up.
The lockers too.
Yeah.
The lockers would be located for the students.
One of the things, I'm going to pull up a different map, and if it gets too confusing, I'll try and bring back a different one. I'll bring back this one. We've taken a look at the locker maps. Okay? Where would the lockers be? What you're seeing here is a floor maps, and it's not as clean as what I just showed you. These are floor maps of the district. Okay? And each locker has been assigned. We have plenty of lockers in this building for all of the students that are there. Okay? I know most people are concerned. It's color-coded, 7th, 8th, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. I'm going to get to the freshman and 8th grade, and I'm just going to look and see what color it is, to show you where they're at. Okay? The math pod is right here. Okay? If we were to go, say, let's use the 7th and 8th grade house system. Okay? Because I'm going to be honest, that seems to be the majority of this committee views that 7th and 8th grade house system is the way to go. Okay? And if we were to go that way, remember, the 3 7th grade teachers would be here, the 3 8th grade core teachers would be there. 7th grade lockers are right in yellow. Okay, they're already numbered out. 8th grade lockers are in green. Okay? Notice that the green goes down all the way to the English social studies area. Okay? But the 8th grade and 7th grade are right next to the 7th and 8th grade pod. Okay? Then you get into our current freshmen. Okay? Right there. Now, because we have more lockers, okay, upstairs than we do downstairs, we can't get all of the sophomores downstairs. So there's a trickle of sophomores that would be upstairs. That is commonplace. That's what we have today as well. Okay, we don't have enough necessarily downstairs, so there are some juniors that are currently upstairs with the freshmen and the sophomores. And that's how we separate it out, folks. We separate it out by grade level currently. Freshmen is upstairs, followed by sophomores. Seniors are on the far end of this hallway, with juniors this way. It really isn't that much of a change. Albeit, if you go 7-12, the unity amongst the staff as far as proximity is concerned is much greater moving into this building than it is next door. Okay, so I wanted to show that out to you on what that would look like. And again, those things are still in conversation and discussion amongst this committee, and by December 8th, hopefully we'll have an idea that's created. Some other things that we've talked about and we've observed in our findings is we would have separate lunches. Okay? We currently have 2 different lunches. We could easily do a 7, 8, and 9 lunch. We could do a 10, 11, 12 lunch. Okay? Separate locker rooms. New Berlin, with 1,200 students, has all of their kids in one locker room. Okay? Well, boys and girls, so 2 locker rooms. Okay? We are fortunate, though, to have 4 locker rooms here. We could have a 7 and 8 locker room if we wanted. We could have a 9 through 12 locker room. Okay, for both boys and girls in that capacity. One of the things that you heard before is middle school only activities, high school only activities, and then also some 7-12 combined activities. That is imperative that we continue to keep some of the structure of the middle school. Okay, we have to. And middle school kids can't enjoy all the benefits that the high school kids have. That's something that I think we all agree on this committee with that. Middle school continuation with middle school classes with options to take upper level coursework to meet their academic needs. Again, 7th graders aren't going to all be in high school classes. Some are going to, just like some are today. I do anticipate more having the ability and opportunities to take upper level coursework if we do this, because some of the roadblocks that are currently in place won't be there. Okay, but again, that's a family decision for that to decide. You heard about school spirit. Peshtigo certainly had it. I think we can do it. The energy and enthusiasm that the 7th graders can bring can uplift a lot of us here at the high school. Staff collaboration, I think, would be increased as a result. We would have a unified bell schedule with no transporting back and forth, or limited transporting back and forth. The transitional impact on education, you heard Ms. Nickel talk about the importance of that. The less transitions you have in a student's life, the better off they are going to be, the easier it is to be with them. And then the socially emotional maturation, you heard some committee members, particularly Craig, talk about that high school kids are up here, middle school kids are down here. They don't really gravitate with each other. If you come in, you're going to see that here at the school, particularly before school and after school if you come in for a site visit with that. At this point in time, okay, and we did a pretty good job, I thought, I think, in keeping it to an hour and 15 minutes. We were hoping no longer than that, because we want to turn it over now to questions for committee members that's there. And Dan, nobody put anything in the box for questions that goes on. Okay, yeah. We don't have any questions at all?
Yeah, I think there is.
There is some.
In the box?
There is
Come on up to the
some.
microphone.
Come on up to the microphone if you would, then.
Or give us your sheet.
Or give us the sheet, we'll read it. And if you've got questions now, please fill one out and we'll do that. The question has, there's a few of them on here, and if you don't mind, I'll go through them. Is this happening because of government cuts to education? Governors, I'm sorry. Okay. Is this happening because of the governor's cut to education?
I have to stand up. No, it's not. The question comes up, does this save the district money? Ultimately, yes, it will save some money. We don't have a concrete number yet because we have to, on those plans he showed, we have to get the staffing to the exact staffing, and we don't have that done yet. We could have a few less sections. When you've got more staff in one area, it's easier to be able to make some sections a little bit larger. And when I say larger, I'm saying we currently have some sections of maybe 9, 10, 11 kids. That could go up to 14, 15, 16 kids. The districts we visited, they were in the mid-20s for the most part with their class sizes. We would still be well below that. But there could be some savings with staffing with any of these options, and hopefully done through attrition.
We are very fortunate here at Pines. Our average class size here at the high school is around 18. Peshtigo had an average class size of 22, and New Berlin had an average class size of 28. The next question that we have, Dr. Ritchie, you can probably keep that. If St. Germain and Land O'Lakes remained as elementary schools, would this be necessary? If St. Germain and Land O'Lakes remained as elementary schools, would this be necessary?
I think they meant that they stayed K-5. Is that, okay. First of all, I would say yes, we would still be looking at this because what we want to do is, the biggest reason we're doing this, we're examining our current facilities. And when you look next door at the K-8, they are overcrowded. There is no extra space. We have rooms, I'm going to give you a couple examples next door. We have a pre-kindergarten room in a classroom not designed to be a classroom, okay? In a very small interior room with no windows. These are our 4-year-old kindergarten students. That's where they are all day long. We have occupational therapy, physical therapy, we have speech in rooms that were not designed to be those specific rooms. Our nurse station could be another example. And I can give you other examples of where we're overcrowded over there. We have lots of space available over here. And we have, what I would say, for our 7th and 8th graders, we can better utilize the space, especially when you talk about the tech ed, the band, and music. Also, another reason to look at shifting for space, providing space over there, is it would actually impact every grade level over there. And what I mean by that is if this move did happen, we would move the current 5th and 6th grade students to where the 6th and 7th grade students are located. So that would free up some space on the elementary side. The 5th grade students could now enjoy a science lab. There's 2 science labs over there. So now our 5th grade students could actually have science in the science lab, as could our 6th graders like they currently do. Okay, that's another example. Our face room over there, it's a great room. Okay, the whole school over there can utilize the face room. If a kindergarten class wanted to do a Thanksgiving lunch, or if they wanted to have a grandparent day, or if a 3rd grade class wanted to team with the 4th grade class, they would have that room that they could do a cooking activity, or they could do any other activity. And there's other examples that would really utilize the space over there and would take some of the crunch away from that building. It would definitely help with the space and the not just the academic opportunities over here, but the overall educational instruction over here. It would make a huge impact on our students.
The next question that we have is, why not have a public vote on this? And I guess
good question.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'll kind of speak to that just a little bit if I could. Actually, there is a public vote. We elect officials to make our decisions for us, and we're hopeful that in January they're going to decide yay or nay on a potential plan that we're going to have unveiled in December 8th. So technically, there is a public vote by officials that we've all elected.
And I guess, that would be one good way of putting it. And when you look at a public vote, I know this issue is very controversial. We know that, okay? But everyone up here is looking at what is in the best interest for the entire school district. I've got kids involved also, okay? I live and breathe education 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And if you don't believe me, you can ask my wife. Okay, I do. I'm passionate about Northland Pines. I'm passionate about education. Okay, and I really believe that whatever recommendation we make, we are going to be doing something in the very near future with this district, with some kind of structuring. And as we mentioned earlier, I think that we want to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking at some type of recommendation.
Next question is, will we lose teachers?
Well, I kind of already answered that question. It could reduce some staffing, not just teachers, but it could also reduce some support staffing. Again, depending, and those numbers change every year. It depends on our students. And some students have a one-to-one paraprofessional because of their need. As those students leave or graduate, that always has an impact on our staffing. And I said earlier, you could combine some sections, which could have an impact on staff.
Will the student-to-teacher ratio increase?
For the most part, it would stay the same, but again, you could increase it slightly where you have very low numbers. Classes of 7, 8, 9, 10, I think we need to increase them. We need to be fiscally responsible, and we need to increase those class sizes. Do I ever want to see a class like what New Berlin had of 27, 28, 29, 30? No. We want to stay in the low 20s, upper teens. I think those are perfect numbers.
What about band? How is that going to work?
Band and choir have a huge advantage because currently, again, those teachers travel back and forth from the high school to the middle school. They could stay in their same room and they would be able to enjoy the practice rooms that we have, and they would be able to actually, I think, when you build your program, you always want to work with your feeder program, and what a great way to recruit students to have 7 through band and 7 through 12 choir together in the same building. Some of the districts that we visited, they actually do activities for band and music 7-12. So they could march together on an occasion, they could do a concert together. Some of the concerts, as they explained to us what they do, is they'll do a 7 and 8 concert, but the same night, then they'll bring the 9 through 12 graders on stage, and then at the end, what they'll do is they'll do the 7-12 together.
Can I just ask a question to add on to that?
Sure.
You know, the middle school band room, is that going to still stay in the middle school band room? Because I don't know how they could possibly fit all the instruments in the high school.
If you come on the tour, and that's a great question, how are they all going to fit in the high school? I would like to have some committee members address what they saw when we got to the band area. First, before we even walked into the band area, what did you see? And then that was a question, is there enough storage? Okay, and I'll let one of these folks speak to it.
When we went through the hallway, it was locked because obviously it was in the morning and the band teacher was over at the middle school. And outside the band room door, there was a small case with a flute in it sitting in the hallway, and I don't know if it was a trumpet or some other instrument, and their music books. And they were sitting there, and we looked at each other like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Well, I questioned them, actually. I said, before we even go into the band room, I said, you see these instruments sitting outside, okay? What does that tell you about the culture of our school?
Trust.
Absolutely. Our kids are able to leave expensive band equipment outside. Not that we want them to, but the reason why they are is because the teacher's over at the middle school, okay? And it's not unlocked at that point in time. But that tells you the trust that we have with that that's going on. And to ask, when you come through a site visit, and I encourage you to do it, you're going to see zip ties, okay, on all the lockers that aren't currently used for storage in the band area. You'll see zip ties, and it's kind of overwhelming, to be honest with you. And then your last question is about Montessori. I'm going to ask you to talk to Mr. Dufek on that. We're here to talk 7-12 at this point in time, so I would encourage you to do that. The next question, Dr. Ritchie, is does the move leave an empty middle school building, and what are the ideas for the empty middle school or junior high building?
I already talked about moving the 5th and 6th grade to the current 6th and 7th grade wing. And then if this option went through, another recommendation that we could make is to, all of you I think know SOAR's at Land O'Lakes, that's a charter school, and currently that's for grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. There's a waiting list. Right now we have 64 students out there with a waiting list. We don't plan on expanding the grades 5 through 8 because we feel that at 64 it's a good number and it's a very manageable number, and you deliver education so differently, and we had 43 the year before and went to 64. We feel we're maxed out at 64. However, next year we're going to expand SOAR into 9th and 10th grade. So one option could be to put the 9th and 10th grade charter school over where the current some of the 8th grade classrooms are, utilizing those rooms. So if you did that, you would use most of the rooms over in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade wing. And you do want to have a couple empty classrooms, but you could have some flexibility, so you could do some things grade-wise together. And it's just nice to have a meeting room. If you had students that wanted to work on special projects, or if you wanted to do some staff development, it's really nice when our teachers have a room that they can go to, and they don't have to try to find a place in a different building.
Next question is, how do you plan on keeping the 7th and 8th graders from getting bullied and the upper class kids from not wanting to date the younger kids?
I'll take that one. As my main concern is my teenagers coming into the high school, and I remember freshmen, you're fresh meat. I'm sorry, you're fresh meat when you come in as a freshman. I'm thinking, what's it going to be like for a 7th grader? I asked this question at Peshtigo. I said, what is going on with that? And their answer was, they have a discussion with each class before school starts. It's basically illegal in their mind. 7th and 8th graders are off limits. They're untouchables. Don't think about it. Well, you can think about it because you can't stop that. It's not going to happen. It's a non-negotiable. You may not date. You may not hold hands. You may not make googly eyes. You may not go near them essentially in that way. And I pointed out, because they know this is my main concern, and I said, so in other words, it needs to be intentional. This has to be something that is intentional through the staff. They are diligent on it. They are watching it. They are active in participating, saying, this does not happen here. 7th and 8th graders are untouchable. You may not have a relationship with them, which was one of my main concerns. If you choose to outside of the school, if your parents are okay with it, that's fine. But in this school, it doesn't happen. That made me feel a lot better, and I made sure that I expressed my opinion on it, that this is one of those things that needs to be intentional, and it needs to be addressed and enforced with these high schoolers, that these 7th and 8th graders, and vice versa, because there's some 7th and 8th graders who are a little bit more mature. They're not allowed to go upper class either. It goes both ways. There's no intermingling when it comes to the dating pool, as that's one of my major concerns.
The other thing you have to remember is we're going to be adding, 20, 25 more staff members into this building for supervision, so you actually have increased supervision with more staff over here. And also, I am not concerned at all from 7:30 to 3:30. When you look at what happens right now, we have kids that come over here after school with a lot less supervision, but they're over here on their own after school every day. And so the 7:30 to 3:30 is not a concern at all. We have pre-K through 12th graders that ride the same bus every day. And are there issues? Of course you're going to have issues. But is it under control? Absolutely. And all 3 visits we went to, they said over and over and over, if there are issues, the issues are between middle school, high school. Not one of these 3 buildings had an issue of any type of student bullying.
You know, Dr. Ritchie just talked about the fact that we're adding more staff. I just want to point out here on the map an example. This is the upstairs. Okay, if we went 7-8 pod, where meaning the 7th and 8th graders are all in the now math pod. If you just look at it staffing-wise, okay, you have 4 math teachers here. You have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers right there. That's 10 adults in this one little area keeping an eye on kids. You look down here, you have 6 here, you have 5 there. Okay, that's 11 adults just standing right in that area. Okay, we are increasing the amount of supervision that we actually have in this building. Plus, students have 5 minutes to get to and fro. There's not a lot of time to do much in 5 minutes. Okay? The issues that we tend to see at this school, I'm going to be honest, happen at your house, and then it filters into the school. Social media is an example of that. Facebook and the issues that go on there, it filters into school, and then when they see each other the next day, that's when it happens. Okay? It's not necessarily happened during the school day. The next question that we have is, well, and you kind of answered some of this, but there's a little different twist to this, Dr. Ritchie, is what will happen with the current middle school? Rumor is Soar High School will utilize that space. If so, why not put the Soar School in the high school?
Mr. Foster, did you like that one? Mr. Foster and Mr. Dupek are our charter gurus here. They've really done a great job over the past 2 years. We've talked about this quite a bit, and I'm going to let Scott has gone to a number of DPI meetings regarding charter grants and charter schools. So I'm going to let Scott talk a little bit about what would happen.
And that decision is not being made. I can guarantee you that that decision is not pushing this committee. This committee has to do what's best for the majority of our students in our district. The best place for a Soar High School, which we are planning to open next year, the contract was approved last night, would be somewhere on this Eagle River campus. It could be here, it could be next door. The reason why the best place for it is on the Eagle River campus is we are definitely going to have a collaborative partnership with Northland Pines High School. Our students at Soar High School will be able to take a limited amount of classes here at the high school. We're hoping to share facilities. We're also hoping to share staff. So when you do look at it though, the best place for it is not in the same building as the grades are in. You'll notice Soar Middle School, which is actually housed in Land O'Lakes Elementary. We find it to be very successful. It is what DPI recommends. When you travel around the state looking at charter schools, which myself and others in this room have done together, they are more successful when they're not within schools, a school within a school. They have a harder time finding their identities. The kids do not, a lot of kids choose to go to the charter school for all kinds of different reasons, and some of those reasons make it very difficult when it's in the same building that they're choosing not to attend. However, just like every initiative we do in this district, there's resources that have to be addressed. So as this committee does their work, we do have a charter school, high school committee kind of work in parallel, doing the job we need to do to prepare to have the school the best it can be, no matter where we end up choosing to put it. Like I said from the beginning though, we are preparing this school to be in multiple locations depending on what this Northland Pines Board decides where it's going to be. But in all reality, the best successful place would be not to be in this facility. However, if that's where we end up being due to space and other choices, we will try to be as successful as we can. I will say, in either location, and there are Orlando staff sitting in this building as well, Sorter Charter School has made Land Lakes Elementary a better school. We collaborate, we share, students to students, staff to staff. There are many times we work as one, and there's many times we work as two separate. I have two separate staff meetings sometimes. Sometimes we have them together. We do some assemblies apart, some together. And that's some of what this would continue on once the Soar High School is down here. When it makes sense to collaborate and work together, we would. When it's time to get separate, we would as well.
Next question. Is there any concrete evidence and studies from the schools visited for statistics on how the children were affected socially and emotionally, both positively and negatively?
Well, the comments that we made earlier about what we saw, but Emily, do you want to share out any of that research that you talked about earlier today?
It was more of a Google search. I don't want to get into, I was doing like a ton of research. I want to preface with that, but just based on some comments that were made at the board meeting yesterday, which I appreciated, you know, are we looking at the impact and are we really looking at research? And from the research that I found, and I dug looking for a couple of hours this evening, I couldn't find any evidence, research-based, of a negative impact of 7 to 12 on a child socially or emotionally. There was some research on academics, but even that, there isn't a ton of research to support that it promotes advancement. Really, the emphasis is on putting in place positive structure and ensuring that you are really working on mentorship programs, that you are ensuring that you're looking at an effective transition from one building to another. The research that I found actually promotes both socially, emotionally, and academically the number of years. As the number of years increase in one building, the success both socially and emotionally and academically also increase. So looking at a 7 to 12 structure would actually support the fact that social and emotional development is stronger from what I found. And I'm happy to share those articles with whoever's interested in that. But I really couldn't find anything negative, and I really thought that I would. Obviously, there's information out there that's opinion-based, but research-based, I couldn't find evidence to support that.
And you know, when you look at research, districts restructure grade levels all the time. There's a ton of research out there on grade levels and restructuring and what's the best grade span. And I think David said it last night at the board meeting, that K-8 option, that's a very good K-8. Not an elementary and middle school, but true K-8 option is a very good grade span because those kids are together then for 9 years, okay, with no transitions until they get to the high school level. And so what you'll see if you look at research, a lot of the middle school philosophy is going away. And they're looking at that K-8 structure or 7-12 structure. Another structure very common in Wisconsin, because we have a lot of smaller school districts, is K-12. I spent 6 years in Hurley as an administrator, and Hurley's a K-12 school district, all one building, under one roof, and it was basically pre-K through grades 5 on one wing, and then grades 6 through 12 on the other wing. And so that's very common. The reason we can't look at a K-8 is simply because you have to do and deal with the resources you have in your district and the facilities you have in your district. Obviously, we're not going to build any other structures in this district. We don't need to. And so when you look at our district, we are overcrowded at K-8, and we have plenty of room over in this building. So that's why we can't even look at that K-8. That is a good grade structure. And we'll continue to look for research to try to see if we can find any other research out there. Holly, go ahead.
I just want to get back to the comment that was made earlier about the 5th grade move over to the middle school and try and clear up that population a little bit. Maybe you want to just talk a little bit about the population that's actually going into those buildings from the charter schools, as far as kids going into Eagle River versus how many more kids they are gaining in those outlying schools.
Well, right, I guess I'm going to back up, and I'm not sure if I answered the question correctly, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I think we had 62 or 63 kids in Land O'Lakes, and that was a pre-K through grades 5. That was traditional. And then we opened the charter school a couple years ago. First year we had 43, this year we have 64, plus the traditional numbers have increased. And so right now, today, Land O'Lakes sits at about 143 students out in that building. I believe you, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, how many 5th grade in SOAR? 21 5th graders attend SOAR Charter School, and they are bused from either St. Germain or Eagle River to Land O'Lakes along with the Land O'Lakes students. I believe the Montessori is going to have the same impact in St. Germain. This Montessori is only going to be for grades pre-K through 4. But what you're going to see right now, we have about 124, 126 students in St. Germain traditional. In the charter contract for the Montessori, I believe we capped it at 40 students for next year. Tony's at 40 students for next year, and then we're going to add an additional 20 to 25 students that following year. So again, what you're going to have is Land O'Lakes at capacity with a traditional and a project-based charter school. The goal is St. Germain will be at capacity with a traditional and then a pre-K through grade 4 Montessori. So the students in our district will have lots of different options.
Getting
that answer the
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
Okay.
Getting back to the original question, it was, is there any concrete evidence and studies from the schools? Well, I hope you heard a little bit tonight from the committee members on the site visits and, their opinions and thoughts and what they saw, and that's the reason why we took those site visits. Also, this data that you see right here are the 712 schools throughout the state of Wisconsin. This isn't something that we're just pulling out of the air and looking at. There are a lot of other districts out there. I personally have talked to at least a half a dozen more principals of these schools to find out, what is the evidence that is there. Those are the things that we're going to continue to take a look at as a committee. Dr. Ritchie, our next question. How will this affect children with special needs and incorporating them within the classroom?
Did we answer that question with Emily's, or do you want more?
No, not really, I didn't.
Okay, go ahead.
The structure would absolutely change. I can't tell you exactly today what that would look like, but programming in terms of level of inclusion would not be any different than it is today. You create an IEP for a child with a disability based on their present level, and then you best meet their needs in the way that they need them at, not based on the structure. So we would continue to meet the needs of every student and integrate them into the classroom in the same way that we do today.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what we currently do with our high school and middle school?
Yeah, we actually, this year, our high school and middle school, 2 of our special education teachers were collaborating and working on a reading program together and trying to figure out how this was going to work. And they just didn't have the numbers to support the good groups within their own classrooms. So they decided, they came to me actually and said, our schedules align perfectly, we can work this out where I can bring my group of students over and work within the high school environment, and we can group them more appropriately together and have good group size that would be most effective for teaching, and then flip-flop where the other instructor would then facilitate math. And it has not worked out that way. We've met several times. It's been a little bit frustrating in terms of the schedule truly did not align the way that they thought it would. We have her going over in a cart. We've had to rearrange that a couple of times. But from my perspective, from a special education standpoint, I foresee really great things in terms of collaboration and utilizing staff in the best way possible. I know that our high school staff, if you have an opportunity to talk to them, they have some fantastic ideas. But that would just make that, and I talked a little bit about flexible grouping. We're trying it now. We're making it work, kind of.
are you going to open up 7th and 8th graders to foreign language? Well, I can answer that one. Unequivocally, yes, we will open it up based on ability levels and needs and desires for parents and guardians to take foreign language in particular and other electives. But again, you know, that is up to the parents and guardians' decision. It's offering choices for our students here at Pines. We pride ourselves in that. We just got done answering a few questions about charter schools, always looking for alternatives. Traditional students deserve those alternatives as well. So yes, we would be increasing opportunities for students in that capacity. What will happen to the current 6th grade structure?
I think, did we answer that question about the 6th grade? Would be 5th and 6th grade basically in the current 6th and 7th grade middle school wing. The structure would remain fairly what you have right today. Our vision would be, it's one of the reasons we want the 5th and 6th grade together, is you could possibly have 2 math teachers teaching 5th and 6th grade math, 2 science teachers teaching 5th and 6th grade science. So you could actually specialize in those areas, and that would be the plan. Again, the middle school principal and the 5th and 6th grade staff would work out that schedule, but it would lend itself to be able to have kind of like an intermediate area. It would still be considered elementary, pre-K through 6, but basically your intermediate grades would be 5th and 6th grade, and they would become one team or over in that wing.
The second part of that question was, it was mentioned only one transition, and the transition for that was mentioned by Ms. Nickel would be for all students who go to Eagle River. There would actually be an extra transition for St. Germain and Land O'Lakes folks, the students going from there or there coming into here. So there would be 2 for Land O'Lakes and St. Germain students, but 1 for Eagle River students in that. Another question this person had.
No, that's correct.
Another question were there any site visits to a school that recently transitioned to a 712? Peshtigo had been 712 forever.
Talk a little bit about, the answer is no, not real. New Berlin was 10, 12 years, but we got an added bonus in Peshtigo because as we met and we spent a good part of the day there, the guidance counselor came in and talked to us, and he was a current, was he a principal in Menominee, Michigan? And you want to talk about what he talked about? And this was recently.
Well, maybe another committee member can mention what that guidance counselor at Peshtigo talked about. Anybody?
Steve.
Excellent.
One of the things that he talked about was all the preparation and planning, and he said that because of the preparation and planning that they had put into it, it was a very smooth transition. I mean, he talked about how smooth the transition was. One of the other things he talked about, were parents nervous? Yeah, the parents are nervous. Even in Peshtigo, he said, yeah, some of the 7th grade parents are nervous, but a lot of their anxiety was quickly relieved once the school year started, you know, within a few weeks of the school year starting.
We actually, amongst us, a lot of you probably haven't been introduced yet to Mr. Marine, who is the gentleman who's been bouncing back and forth. But Mr. Marine is the new assistant principal here at the high school, and he came from, we hired him from the Brown Deer School District, which 3 years ago, 3 or 2?
This will be the
second year transition to 712. So Dan, I don't know if you want to take the mic for a minute or so and just share your experience there.
I believe they were just over 800. What was your own?
Yeah, I taught in Brown Deer for 3 years. Between my second and third year, we went from a 6-8, 9-12 structure to a 7-12. So we have a K-6 building down there and a 7-12. Totally different clientele than what you have here with your wonderful children. Not that they're not wonderful children, but it is completely different. Our staff has no idea what it would be like in that environment, and that's perfectly fine with me. And I mean that sincerely. There were some issues scheduling-wise, but as far as 7th and 8th graders in that building last year, there were no issues between middle school and high school students. Again, a lot of things that were mentioned occurred there. School spirit was definitely increased. We saw that a lot in the basketball program. That's the big sport down there at that school. I didn't see And I taught in both 7th, 8th grade classroom and 9th, 12th classroom. So I dealt with 7, 12 kids every day, all day, every day, and never once are the middle schoolers talking about the high school kids, and never once are the high school kids talking about the middle school kids. I mean, they just really could not care less that the others were in the building.
How long was the school like that you came from?
They just transitioned there just over a year ago.
Okay, and what was that school called?
Brown Deer,
Brown Deer.
just north of the city of Milwaukee.
Thank you, Dan.
If I can add in quick too, the guidance counselor that we met with at Peshtigo really reiterated the fact that we would have to have a strong transitioning program, and he worked hard. And I think that we would look at that and make sure that the 6th graders going into the 7-12 are comfortable, and building that transitioning program is an important part. So that would be something we consider as well.
Our last question, and we'll get to public comment. We're on our last question, and then we'll do public comment. Are you surprised by the decline in enrollment when the national trend is the decline in family size and marriage rates?
You know, part of the problem that we deal with is the fact that there's lack of good paying jobs anywhere in the Northwoods. And I think what we're finding is our enrollment is not solely declining because people are leaving for different jobs, but that does have an impact on it. Our enrollment is declining for a couple of reasons. One, the biggest reason is for the past 10, 11, 12, 13 years, our senior class has been much, much larger than our pre-K, pre-kindergarten class and our kindergarten class. We've had senior classes of 140, 142, 156, 162 students, and coming in, this is 9, 10 years ago, but coming in, we had kindergarten classes and pre-kindergarten classes of 50, 60, 70, 80 students. And so that's the biggest reason for a decline in enrollment. It's going to start stabilizing off in a few years. And the other reason for declining enrollment happens to be that students have a lot more options right now. Open enrollment could be an issue, but I'm happy to say we have more ins than outs. But a few years ago we didn't. Online learning is being very popular, so students can actually open out to an online school. That could have an impact in the future. And when you look at the people who move here, a number of the people are retired. They come here as a retirement life, and they don't have any kids, and families are having fewer kids. So when you add all that together, that really plays an impact on enrollment.
Thank you for submitting questions, everyone. At this point in time, as you can see, we've only got 10 minutes of our meeting left. We do want to get some public comments. If anybody would like to come on up to the mics, please keep your comments brief and short so we can get people in. And most of all, follow our guideline, which is to end at 9 o'clock. So would anybody like to have any public comments?
So Emily, I'm Heidi, and I know we met a couple of times, and I just want to thank you first and foremost for pointing out the social and emotional role of these children. For the first time from all of these meetings, I've heard about possibilities of mentoring programs, as you pointed out today, and happy to hear that. But I think, as pointed out earlier in our discussion, these children aren't necessarily walking into counseling offices to talk about anxiety and stress and depression. They're coming to offices outside of this building, meeting counseling offices where there's psychologists, there's therapists, and there's psychiatrists. And I just encourage you guys to look at the cons of these individuals in these schools that you've been to, talking with their psychologists, talking with psychologists outside of that school who have that data, who can tell you about the increase in anxiety if there is some. I am concerned with a 12-year-old having this transition experience. We're already having problems with the 9th grade. That's one of the reasons for this project, and I hope putting it in younger children. So we need to look at that and be aware of those cons and how we can address them.
They can be, and we will contact the 3 schools you visited. we will contact the school psychologists and those school students.
Thank you. Mrs. Payne, is that your name? Correct me if I'm wrong, but you did say that the worries of students are your first worries as well, correct?
My worries of students, my concerns of students?
Students' worries are your first worries.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Will Janko. I'm a current senior at North Pines High School. And that being said, I've been through the freshman, the sophomore, the junior years of high school, right? Through those years, I've seen that there's no separation at all between freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. It's all one mindset. I mean, what goes on through the seniors happens through the freshmen too. If this were to go through, the seventh graders would also be experiencing the same things that seniors would be experiencing. Also, the way that you said that, like, there would be separation between lockers, which would minimize how the contact between seventh graders and upperclassmen. I'm a senior right now, and I have a lot of good friends that are freshmen and sophomores that play basketball with me. There's no separation between me and them in the hallways. I mean, I go between every class with my friends that are sophomores, and I'm an upperclassman. Thank you, that's all I want to say. Keep that short and sweet. Thank you, well. Yeah.
I just had more of a question. What is the timeline then for those other schools as far as talking about it, discussing it, deciding on it, implementing, working on the transition? Because you're talking about starting this already next year, and you just started the committee in September. And I'm just wondering, the other schools, how long did it take them from the beginning to the end process?
But the guidance counselor that we talked to at Peshtigo, who was a administrator in the nominating, said it took 2 years. And the reason why it took 2 years is they had a building project that they were dealing with. Otherwise, they would have been able to do it in a year, but they had some construction issues, which we wouldn't have really any construction issues outside of an art classroom, to be honest with you, to modify it a little bit. So for them, they were able to do that. Peshtigo, although had been for forever, we didn't actually ask, but I can certainly follow up with New Berlin when they did transition New Berlin West into 712. I didn't ask how long it took them, but we can certainly look into that.
And Dan just went through it. Dan, how many years did West Bend was gathered?
Brown Deer passed the referendum in November, and it was 1.5 years, but there was a ton of construction before school down and added on to the 2 remaining schools.
Thank you.
I guess my question is about looking at, we're growing a team here, you know, and as much as you presented the reality of segregation, really you're talking about integrating for true success. So we're growing the team here. And if we look at the team now taking a weaker member as a 7th grader, the one concern I have is that you haven't expressed anything about rewiring the high school to accept this weaker team. And so are the teachers prepared to accept this responsibility along with the students? Ultimately, I've interviewed some sophomores, my son's a sophomore here, and I asked him where he felt the most exposed, where he was the most uncomfortable. And he said in a classroom, he feels safe, everything's fine. Teachers respond to everything. As soon as the bell rings, in the hallways and at lunch, he said that's where he's exposed to essentially whatever high school kids are, you know, and as much as we may have above average kids, you're looking at high school kids, it's gonna happen. So from that standpoint, have you looked at, and are teachers on board with the reality of rewiring their own responsibilities, knowing that they're now accommodating a younger age group within their own priorities? And where do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right, they will be exposed to a lot of stuff, but they are currently being exposed at the middle school. I mean, if you don't think, well, let me rephrase this. Middle school students have access, like our high school students, to what goes on in society as well. Our job is to make sure that your students are safe when they're here at school, and your son in particular, and everybody else's that comes through. One of the things that you heard us talk about is a mentoring program that we would have to do. I personally will talk to each class about the importance of being that role model. I currently do that with all the students now but I trust the seniors and say, this is your school, hey, lead by example with that. Our students have not been presented what you have right now, been presented the last 2 hours. They will be getting that in the next month or so. The same type of information that you just got tonight, they need to be informed as well. And I will be emphasizing, if we go this route, it is vital that they act as mature adult citizens to help these younger kids out. Because that's what they are. They're adults, these kids. They're going to be voting next week, some of them. Will, I don't know if he's 18 or not, but if he is, he's going to be voting next week. They're adults in that capacity. We've got to help them with that. As far as the staff goes, the staffs, and a lot of them are here tonight, and this is the first time they've heard some of this stuff or seen some of this that goes on. I'm holding 5 listening sessions with my staff and the middle school staff. We held one today where we had probably about 15 staff members this morning going through some of the concerns, some of the floor plans that you've seen just now. Again, you've got a leg up coming here tonight, even about some of our staff. Next week I'm over at the middle school and I'll be doing the same thing there. And the next following subsequent weeks we'll be doing that with all of the staff. I can't answer that question to you now. But that is something that we will be talking about as we continue to move forward in investigating, is this the right move for our district?
I'm just going to chime in a little bit on that, in that I think the scary part for families right now is that the culture of this building is the culture of a high school. So as we talk about students who are in high school and they're good high school kids, they're still high school kids. So that's scary to us to think that our 7th and 8th graders are going to be in the culture of a high school building. So it's our responsibility as we look at not only the mentor program, but we need to change the culture, in that we need them to recognize that we now have new members in our building. We need to work with these students and educate them that they are leaders, that they are role models. This is all part of the process, and that's something that I know that I've mentioned it a couple of times, that's something that I'm really passionate about on this committee, is ensuring that we do everything we can in our power to make this as positive as possible. And the way to do that is through trying to shift some of this cultural change. And another comment I want to make is that we are going to continue to have middle school staff on board. Middle school staff who's, knowledgeable in the adolescent mind and who can, work with other staff to ensure that we're doing everything that we can to support these students. They're going to continue to be visible in the hallways, and they'll be, the experts. And I feel, Faith, that maybe you can chime in a little more into what that could look like. But I agree, it's something we need to think about. The culture here is a high school school right now, and we're shifting that to
one of the things too, and Emily, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're getting at 9 o'clock, and we got to, maintain the rules that we have established. I would encourage all of you again to come on in and see what this school culture is like. Up on the screen are the dates that we have established. Again, if you can't make those dates, contact Dr. Ritchie or myself. We'd be glad to give you a tour. Expect to tour about an hour, if not a little bit more with that. With that being said, Dr. Ritchie's going to do some closing statements, and we'll wrap it up here this evening.
I want to make one more comment, I don't want to have anyone leave here with any misconception. I answered the question earlier about could it save some money. My reply was yes, it could save some money, not a lot, but it could save some money, should save some money. I don't have a dollar amount yet. Does that mean we will not have to go to a referendum? Absolutely not. We will still have to go to a referendum. I want to make that very clear. And currently we are in the 2nd year of a 3-year referendum. And so I just wanted to point that out so no one left here with any misconception. I can't thank you enough for coming tonight. I want to thank the committee for all their volunteer work that they're doing with this process. They are put in a very difficult spot. Okay, they didn't ask, they're doing something for our kids and for our community. I can't thank you enough. I want to close with why am I so confident this will work in our district? Because I know our kids, I know our families, I know our staff. We have good kids. We all, for the most part, these kids have grown up with each other. If you talk about hockey, if you talk about youth basketball, you talk about soccer, you talk about dance, you talk about whatever you want. We're a very small, close-knit community, and our families know each other, our kids know each other for the most part. I am very confident if this recommendation, if this plan goes through, it will be highly successful, and it will make our school district even better. So again, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Please, please, please try to make one of those tours or contact us and we'll give you a tour whenever you can make it. Thank you.